Welcome back from the ad break. You are still watching Prime Life. Now, I'm delighted to be joined by Khalid Vawda from Social Intifada, one of the many organizations at the forefront of the Palestinian Solidarity Movement in South Africa. Now, this past weekend, Khalid, in collaboration with various other, organized the first Palestine Solidarity Walk in Soweto, and it was uniting and also, just bringing diverse communities in a powerful demonstration of solidarity. Khalid is here to share his insights on the event, its significance, and the ongoing struggle for justice and self-determination in Palestine. Assalamu alaikum, Khalid. Jazakallah so much for joining us on Prime Live, and welcome. May you please unmute yourself?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah khair for having me.
Jazakallah so much. Can you please tell us what inspired you to organize the Palestine Solidarity Walk in Soweto?
That was not organized by us. It was done exceptionally well by the team at Salam Media. We were one of the solidarity organizations that supported the event and assisted where we could. But it was an entirely led campaign run by the Salam Media team from inception. The idea of the march and the walk in Soweto was conceptualized by the Salam Media team. We supported it obviously through our means on social media and through our channels. And by lending a voice as well. But all credit goes through to Salam Media. All of the other Solidarity Palestinian organizations joined hands and came together to support this excellent initiative.
And how can you explain the significance of this event in the context of the broader Palestinian struggle?
It's significant in that this is the first time that Soweto has hosted a march or a solidarity event for Palestine. And this is significant for a number of reasons as well, because Soweto shares the history of the struggle. Soweto has been an epicenter of the struggle against apartheid for all of these decades that we lived under oppression in South Africa. And what Sowetans experienced during the darkest days of apartheid, including the massacre of kids in 1976, which was recently commemorated all over the country, this was echoed by the youth leaders. They were youth then in 1976, and many of them spoke at this event, highlighting what they've been through and the relation they have, and the understanding that they have of what people are going through in Gaza. One difference that they all have agreed on is that during the darkest days of apartheid, we did not have F-35 dropping bombs on people's homes. We did not have, as apartheid was horrific. There's no excuse for apartheid anyway. But we didn't have our kids being shot in the head with bullets. We didn't have bullet wounds to the chests of 2-year-olds. We didn't have dismembered babies. We didn't have homes collapsing on people due to the weight of the bombs that were dropping. So we had dark apartheid in South Africa. There's apartheid times 10 plus a genocide going on in Palestine. And Soweto came out in one voice to say, we are not happy with this, and we stand by our people in Palestine.
I mean, just given looking at the pictures itself that are being displayed during the interview, it looks like it was definitely a success. And also just seeing the hype through all social media platforms, people really, really came out. How did the local community respond to this walk, and what lessons did you also take away from this experience?
Leading organizations in Soweto who do a lot of work for human rights came out in their numbers to support this. And obviously with them, they brought people who are resident of Soweto to come out with them. This was extremely important because it conscientized people who might not be aware. Because we face a lot of socioeconomic issues all over South Africa. Soweto is not exempt from that. Some people might not know about the reality of what's going on in Palestine. So when the march was taking place, and it was a 2.2 kilometer march from the Regina Mundi Church to Dlamini Masjid, along the way, there were lots of people who were driving by and people on the side of the road who were cheering and hooting in support of the marches. Most of them obviously know what was going on, but I'm sure this provoked a lot of thought amongst people as well, to inquire what is going on. Why are these people marching? They might have seen the signs. They might have seen some of the placards. And I'm sure it stirred something within people to be able to go and understand a little bit more about what exactly is going on here.
And in terms of challenges, with standing with Palestine or with Palestinian solidarity, what do you think are the unique challenges that people who stand for Palestine face in South Africa?
South Africa is uniquely placed because we've come from a struggle during apartheid. We've struggled and we've overcome that, at least in terms of legislation. We've still got a lot of work to do internally in the country. But we don't have that same level of repression that's taking place. So that places a moral responsibility on South Africa to be able to stand up and speak out against injustice wherever in the world it might be taking place. And this is not independent of our internal issues in South Africa. You can do both. You can stand for justice and you can deal with your own issues at the same time. It's not while you're waiting for one to be sorted out and once South Africa is a bed of roses, then only we're going to stand with people. Because during the liberation struggle, when leaders of the movement in South Africa were exiled abroad, their strongest support came from people who shared a similar struggle. And one of those were the Palestinian leadership at that time, along with other countries in Latin America as well, Algeria and North Africa. And Madiba said something very significant in a very famous interview he did in the United States not long after he was released from prison, when he was being questioned and put on the spot about the fact that you've got your friends who are deemed as terrorists by the West. They seem to have some monopoly on the terminology, which they'd like to claim. Madiba told them quite frankly, we will not be told who our friends should be and shouldn't be. And this is very significant because this is where the principle of morality and justice comes from for South Africans. It's always been there. Madiba emphasized on it, and it's something that later generations need to carry on. You stand up for justice, you stand up for truth, and people who've stood by you during your darkest days, you don't turn your backs on them when they need it. And they need the support. And South Africa made groundbreaking strides, being the first country to take Israel to court. We know it's a long, drawn-out process with the International Court of Justice, but the fact that somebody had the courage to take Israel in front of an international court is significant in itself, because it spoke to the fact that despite you coming from the global south, you still have the strength, you have the courage, you have the willpower, knowing full well what's going to happen thereafter. You have the courage and the morality to be able to stand up and do what's right within the legal system that has been set up. So in that regard, South Africa's played a leading role. For solidarity organizations in South Africa, we don't have the issues that our counterparts face maybe in the United States or in certain parts of Europe, where we can work on solidarity, we can educate people. However, at the same time, there's a lot of Zionist interest in South Africa. There's a lot of significant Zionist establishments in South Africa, and there's a lot of strong financial control by Zionists in South Africa. And this is the challenge that South Africans face. This is the challenge that South Africans face who want to stand up for justice in Palestine. So these are the issues that we need to navigate and overcome, where we need lots of support from.
And what would you say to critics who argue that events like the Palestine Solidarity Walk are merely symbolic and have no practical impact on the situation on the ground?
Well, you don't know anything until you do it. When we were in our darkest days of apartheid, we had people campaigning on the streets of New York and London and elsewhere in European cities, not knowing if that day will come when the apartheid regime would end. Nobody saw the end of the apartheid regime. Nobody saw South Africa without the National Party, with apartheid policies entrenched in the country, being made law in the country. And mind you, during those dark days of apartheid, South Africa's strongest trading partner was Israel. South Africa and Israel exchanged cooperation in terms of law, in terms of how best to implement apartheid, which you're seeing now on a new level being done in occupied Palestine. So, there's a long way to go, but all of these actions do help. There's the boycott campaign, there's the divestment campaign, there's the sanction campaign. All of these have come about as a result of governments failing in their obligation and governments failing in their ability to be able to carry out due diligence, to be able to hold Israel accountable for basically the impunity that it enjoys around the world. They've got the United States behind them, and they're going about just destabilizing the entire region, and extended beyond that is they destabilizing the world. So this is a menace and a cancer that has to be stopped. And people on the ground want to do something. This is their way of showing support. We've also received many reports of people in occupied Palestine who know that people around the world want to help them, but they're being blocked by respective governments. But when they see the support of people on the streets in Western cities, in Middle Eastern cities, in Asian and Latin American cities, it gives them a sense of courage that they're not entirely alone in this, and that there are people who do care.
Definitely. And in light of recent developments in Israel Palestine relations, how would you characterize the current state of the Palestinian struggle?
Well, it's taken a long it's a long road. Palestine's been under occupation since 1948, and even before that, when the Zionists set their sights on occupied Palestine. So this is a 7-8 decade long struggle, which is not going to end with a march or two or three. However, when all of these come together, excuse me, when all of these actions come together from the ground up, from people around the world, it starts sending a strong message to Israel and to the colonial powers to say that your time is coming to an end. The call for Israel. So on the one hand, we're seeing the sheer carnage in Gaza. We're seeing people being murdered every single day. On the other hand, with each action and each passing day, Israel is becoming more and more of a pariah state. Nobody likes Zionists anywhere in the world. They can't go on holiday anymore. When they go on holiday, they're being hounded by locals wherever they may go, whether it's South America, whether it's Indonesia. You see the videos on social media. Israeli leaders cannot travel now to certain countries because those countries are under obligation to arrest Israeli leaders if they come there because of the ICC warrants that are out for Israeli leaders. So, to give you an example, when Benjamin Netanyahu flew to the United States after Donald Trump was elected, he had to add an extra 450 kilometers to his journey to avoid certain countries, because flying over the airspace meant that they could get that plane to reroute, land, and they would have had to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. So the life of Zionists is becoming more difficult, and that's something we all need to play a bigger role in, because at the end of the day, people with this ideology, people with this ethno-supremacist terrorist mentality, who just want to butcher people at will into subjugation, this cannot be allowed to continue. So people need to do whatever they can, wherever they can, because the struggle is not just about a ceasefire. The struggle is not just about getting aid into Gaza, which is critical right now. Gaza has been placed under a blockade, an inhuman blockade for the last 3 months. But the ultimate goal here is to liberate Palestine from occupation. And that's what we all need to ensure we keep doing until that goal is reached.
And as we bring our conversation to a close, what message of hope would you like to leave with our audience? And what can people do to support the Palestinian cause in their daily lives and contribute to a meaningful change in the region?
We all need to do more. We are 20 months into a genocide. It's sad to see that some of us have just gone back to life as normal. Life cannot be normal after what we're seeing for the last 20 months. If we have reverted to a life where, what's happening in Palestine just stays there, and we continue doing what we're doing, then we need to check our humanity, each and every one of us. There are a lot of people who are doing, some publicly, some privately. People are donating, people are assisting with humanitarian work where they can. People are doing activism in various guises. People are doing political lobbying. People are going out and educating You got groups of people who would go out on a street corner every weekend and go and conscientize people about why they shouldn't be supporting brands that are on the boycott list. All of these initiatives, whatever people are doing, whether it's the mum who, when she goes to buy her groceries, she educates her children about looking at the label and saying, okay, this is why we're not buying this. And then she has this conversation with another mum while they're waiting to pick their kids up at school. Or it's the dad who refuses to invest in a company where their money is directly going to fuel the genocide. All these types of actions, every single one counts. But what we need to do is we all need to take one step further. And we need to ask ourselves, within my sphere of influence, what's one more thing that I can do? What's one more action that I can do? Not something less, what's another action that I can do on top of what I'm doing right now? I don't even ask people to make dua anymore. Uh, and the reason I don't ask Muslims to make dua is because this should be a given. A Muslim should be making dua for the people of Palestine as well as Muslims everywhere on a daily basis in every salah. This is as as common knowledge as somebody taking a sip of water. It shouldn't be something that we need to be reminded about. But what we need to do, remind each other about, is how can I do something else? How can I assist a little more? How can I educate somebody? How can I speak to somebody at work? Muslim or non-Muslim, it doesn't matter. How can I do one more? So that's my message to the viewers. How can we do one more thing? And if everybody does this, as a collective, this will grow.
I mean, Khalid, Jazakallah so much for joining us and for just giving us insight on the, solidarity work that took place on Saturday, but also just delving a little bit more on the issue of Palestine and how people can continue showing support and standing in solidarity with Palestine. Jazakallah so much for your time.
It's a pleasure.
Viewers at home, that was Khalid Vawda, and we were just speaking on the Palestine Solidarity Walk that happened in Soweto this past Saturday. But that was not the only part of the conversation. I think this was also just a reminder to everyone that we should never forget about Palestine, and most importantly, the solidarity with Palestine should be something that we, input in our daily lives and continue striving for it. But without wasting any time, let's go to an ad break. We'll see you right after this.